Humans are a fucking contrary species. We spend trillions of dollars on DNA manipulation in attempts to create new and useful species of life that will benefit mankind, while simultaneously causing mass extinctions by annihilating all the jungles and rainforests, so we can produce more beef burgers or grow biofuels for our environmentally friendly SUVs. Human civilization always somehow manages to surpass its creativity with an even greater capacity for perverting the things it creates for dumb fuck, sinister and greedy reasons. Someone invents pesticides to kill fucking weevils, and some other cunt has to come along, change a couple of the molecules and turn it into nerve gas. We invent polymers, but then can't stop producing plastic drinks bottles until every corner of the cunting world's oceans are contaminated with plastic crap. We invent antibiotics, and then pump it into battery hens and industrially farmed animals until drug resistance is a global fucking pandemic. If aliens landed tomorrow and gave us the designs for a pollution-free and limitless source of energy for the betterment of humankind, within a cunting week, some shitlord would have figured out how to turn it into a fucking death ray. Okay, I'll admit that death rays are fucking excellent, but you get my fucking point. Humans are inspirational and incredible, but at the same time have an almost limitless capacity for being stupid, short-sighted, greedy, self-destructive cunts. It therefore makes complete sense that humans are capable of inventing video games and elevating them to the status of an art form, surpassing the popularity of cinema, and then systematically fucking ruining the whole enterprise by infesting them with monetization, microtransactions and fucking kiddie gambling. It is thus, with great disdain and with a little bit of puke in the back of my throat, that I find myself reviewing the game, half game, that is, Middle-earth: Shadow of War. Middle-earth: Shadow of War, the evil bastard child of the excellent and much loved Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. This review will be a short one because, frankly, some games don't deserve to be treated with respect, and this is one. I'm also using footage from the original game, not the sequel, because I'm fucked if I'm spending a penny on this bag of shit game. Putting aside the fact that I will mention later about the base version of this game being incomplete, I'm fucked if I'm risking my money on a game that probably has clauses that they won't refund me if I accidentally open a loot crate or some shit like that. Day 1 DLC, microtransactions, XP boosters, pay to win content, and more importantly, fucking randomised loot boxes, which represent the most ethically despicable mechanism for bypassing gambling laws in order to get kids to fucking gamble on their mum's credit cards. A game so fucking corrupt, I can't believe the entire gaming journalism community isn't going fucking batshit crazy about it. You can spend money gambling on getting orc followers, which then might die when you assault a fortress. Yeah, let that fucking sink in. They sell you pay to win content, which they might fucking confiscate from you later. Fucking shills. So what is the basic outline of the game? Shadow of War is the sequel to the critically acclaimed game Shadow of Mordor. This was incredibly well received, and for many, despite its defects and imperfections, was their surprise favourite game of the year. You get to run around like one of the cool guys in Lord of the Rings. You know, not a hobbit basically. And you get to kill every last motherfucker in sight. You got to stab orcs in the fucking eye with a sword. In the fucking eye! You had a great strategy element behind the whole game, and you could stab orcs in the fucking eye. I mean, right through the fucking head. Marvellous. As sequels go, Shadow of War is like Shadow of Mordor on steroids, and I mean that quite literally. It's like your mate started using a fuck ton of steroids, juicing up on big fat doses of fucking Winstrol, injecting it into his arse on a daily cunting basis. He's getting bigger and stronger, but he's now got bad breath, acne, a violent temper, anger management issues, and hangs out with drug dealers in the gym to make sure he gets his regular supply of roids. He is superficially bigger and better, but at his core he is rotten, unhealthy, and heading for liver failure or a 20-year custodial sentence for losing his temper and beating his girlfriend to death because she knocked over his fucking protein shake. It has bigger maps, more complex tactics, and as a whole is an expanded and slightly more deep version of the original, which maintains the essential core combat mechanics often described as being like Tolkien meets Batman Arkham Asylum. It is, let's face it, essentially the same game, made with improved visuals, an expanded levelling system, and a more complex nemesis system, which includes waging siege warfare on enemy strongholds, all carefully crafted to be absolutely cunting ruined by the barrage of in-game fucking microtransactions. The general consensus is that, despite the difficulty settings, the game is basically fairly easy until mid to late game. At late game, it is both tougher and incredibly grind heavy, and finishing the entire game and experiencing the final ending requires a fucking monolithic amount of fucking grind. At which point, coincidentally, you run out of fucking resources and are expected to either eat a bag of fuck and put up with it, or put your fucking hand in your pocket and buy loot crates in order to accelerate your progress towards the anticlimactic ending sequence, which incidentally nearly every critic has described as, well, boring. The in-game monetization is integrated into the very fabric of the game, the marketplace containing both normal and financial transactions. The game prompts and prods you, constantly reminding you that your problems can be magically resolved by just throwing some more dollar bills at the screen. So let's get down to the real gory details of this fucking shit show. Many mainstream reviews of this game have been glowingly positive and either not mentioned or brushed over the key problematic issues of the pay-to-win mechanics. Clearly, they're more concerned about keeping their advertising revenue intact and their cosy relationships with the publishers on good terms, so they can keep winning those industry-sponsored award ceremonies and maintaining their privileged supply of exclusive interviews and early access. Let's be honest here. The industry-wide DLC / microtransaction loot box fuck shittery is now well out of fucking control. Publishers are now routinely selling us games which are blatantly and obviously one game chopped up into bits and resold in fucking portions. Most season passes these days are really just buying the last 50% of the game that was held back or unfinished on the launch day. Gambling mechanisms are becoming commonplace and are blatantly there to target and fucking manipulate kids. And loot crates that are paid to win are fast becoming the new normal. Fuck, I'm actually waiting for a game to be launched which offers instant credit in the in-game fucking premium store. Jesus, somebody watching this video is probably going to steal that idea. One thing I need to mention right off the bat is that Shadow of War is not a game. It's a fucking half game. The normal version of the game, selling for 45 quid here, isn't even the complete fucking game. The silver version of the game, with some of the missing content retailing in the UK at 60 quid, isn't even the full version of the fucking game. In order to actually fucking buy the actual fucking whole full game, you need to buy the gold edition, which retails at 80 cunting quid and contains the game and all of the quests and factions. Let that fucker sink in for a minute. They chopped bits off the game, so if you pay full price on launch day, you get some of the game. To get it all, it's fucking 80 quid. In a game that is designed to encourage you to spend further money on in-game content for progress. Fuck that. That's modern deregulated business practices for you, I guess. Games companies will keep taking the piss more and more until the fucking regulator has to step in because there's blood on the streets. Talking of regulators, as usual, because they are funded by the gaming industry, they are doing fuck all about this shit show. The Entertainment Software Rating Board in America, that's the ESRB, have clearly stated that in their opinion at least, loot boxes paid for with real money are not gambling. Well, they can eat a bucket of dogs' cocks as far as I'm concerned, for the following reasons. The ESRB are not some kind of legal authority or academic expert on what is and what is not technically and legally defined as gambling. Secondly, the ESRB is bought, paid for and funded by the entertainment industry. Yeah, don't forget that. They are not some official government organisation. The entertainment industry pays their wages. It's basically a cross between self-regulation and public relations. Pan-European Game Information, or PEGI as they're known, have yet to act against gambling in video games, but similarly, just like the ESRB, they are run by and paid for by the gaming industry. The moral of the story is, just because organisations have big fancy titles and power doesn't mean they are official, and does not mean you should trust them. The ESRB and PEGI are rent-a-cops, hired by and protecting the interests of the corporations that they claim to be policing. In addition to all of this, there is also a sideshow going on concerning the Memorial DLC in this game. A team of developers from Monolith designed an orc, Forthog Orc Slayer, to memorialise Mike Forgy, a much loved and skilled team member who tragically died of cancer. Warner decided it was going to sell this orc as DLC and donate the proceeds to the Forgy family. But they were going to keep a 30% cut of the money for themselves and 100% of the money if the DLC was purchased outside of 50 specific states in the US. And they were going to pocket 100% of the cash from all foreign purchases. Apparently, Warner has now issued an explanation, backed down and tried to tidy up this fuckshit stack. This story was covered in much greater detail in YongYea's and Jim fucking Sterling Son's videos, and I've included links down below, as well as a link to the Forgy family donation page. The internet is rife with conjecture about whether the Forthog Orc Slayer fiasco was Warner scamming money or Warner legitimately covering its trading costs and respecting local charity laws. I'm not an expert on international financial law. Fuck, my legal experience is limited strictly to the interior of a cell. So I can't say if Warner's excuse was bullshit, although to be honest, it did sound a little bit like bullshit to me. However, they may have been totally legit about the whole thing with the best intentions. The only thing I can say with certainty is that they totally fucked the situation by letting accountants spell out and arrange the terms of sale with all the compassion of a fucking serial killer rapist. If you're going to do something like this, just give all the money to the fucking good cause and write off the difference as a tax loss. Or bundle the item and give half to charity. It's entirely plausible they were completely well-meaning, but they just mishandled the whole situation and totally fucked it. The only other thing I can say for a fact is that Mike Forgy was a good guy, and I hope he is sitting in developer heaven right now, looking down on this clusterfuck and laughing his tits off about how his old employer properly screwed the pooch. The very fact that the whole of the gaming journalism community isn't going batshit crazy about this pay-to-fucking-win bastard Candy Crush fuckshit scam of a game is all the evidence that you need to show you that most of the gaming media is getting paid off by the gaming industry. If there is going to be a change, it's largely going to have to come from consumers and from the sections of the gaming journalism community who are prepared to break ranks. Don't expect the ESRB or fucking PEGI to do jack shit about this. In principle, I have no problems with DLC in games. Make a good game, offer me some DLC, fucking fine. The Fallout series of games and Skyrim, in my book, are great examples of how DLC can equal adding more content and charging a fair price. Everyone is a fucking winner. The publisher doubles down on its profits and the consumer doubles down on their content. I have no problem with paying top dollar for a good game. If it's worth it, I will buy it. I have no problem with free-to-play games, like World of Tanks or Warframe. The game is free, and if you like it and want to progress faster, you can drop some cash at your discretion. What I fucking hate is pay to win. I fucking hate randomised loot boxes that are basically gambling targeting kids. I fucking hate games that are sold incomplete, that require paying for DLC to make them whole. I fucking hate AAA games that are balanced to make the progress difficult to force you into making additional purchases like fucking XP boosters. Shadow of War has all of this. Shadow of War has rightfully earned a special place in the history books of gaming lore for being particularly despicable, because it has none of the good stuff I described, but somehow manages to contain all of the shit stuff I described. That, my friends, is a special achievement, especially considering that this is a AAA title, retailing for top dollar. Achievement unlocked, arseholes, and that achievement is being the most despicable game in town. Until Star Wars Battlefront 2 is released, Shadows of War should savour its brief status of being the most morally bankrupt video game in fucking history. Enjoy your 15 minutes of fame. Look, I get it. Some people who love Lord of the Rings and loved the first game won't be able to resist buying this game. I get it. But dear fucking Lord, recognise that by supporting this game, you are letting the gaming industry shit in your fucking face. And not only this, they have persuaded you to rub that shit into your face voluntarily and to say thank you when you're finished. They are mugging you off, and you are paying them to do it. On the plus side, it appears that some sections of the gaming community are finally waking up and smelling the coffee. And when I say coffee, I obviously mean this shit sandwich we're all being encouraged to chow down on. It would appear that Shadow of War, Star Wars Battlefront 2, Forza fucking 7 and NBA 2018 have crossed the fucking Rubicon by being the first AAA games to retail at premium price, contain microtransactions, gambling loot boxes and paid DLC on day one, but perhaps critically have blatant pay-to-win content and are balanced to cripple the player's progress in order to force them to buy more fucking microtransactions shite. For some, it would appear this was the step too far. Thank fucking God. Some of us have been bleating on for a while now about how loot boxes represent the insertion of pedo gambling mechanics into video games. I've been doing it since The Division launched pedo caches in patch 1.7, and they are by far not the worst culprits. LtBuzz Lightbeer, KalTV and UbberTimmeh have all come out in opposition to this obviously morally flawed business practice. Other huge YouTubers have also been voices in the wilderness, objecting to this practice. Jim Sterling, Total Biscuit and Worth the Buy have been amongst a few huge channels to take a stand, and now the parliamentary petition in the United Kingdom to adapt gaming laws targeting children has hit 10k signatures and the government has to comment. Thankfully, it looks like we are all going to be on the right side of history. Well, that's fucking good news, because we already knew we were on the right side of common cunting sense. So, what are the pros and cons of Shadows of War? Well, on the downside, this game is a bag of fuck, designed to rip you off and make you act like a fucking mug. The entire game is retroactively designed to encourage you to part with your money, having already paid for the game once already. The final ending of the game has been deliberately paywalled behind an endless grind in the hope you fucking despair and start spending cash to complete it. The entirety of the in-game marketing of microtransactions is based on the assumption that you are a fucking idiot, and they can laugh at you when you shell out $100 on top of what you have already paid to finish a game that isn't really that different from the original. So, what are the pros? Well, on the plus side, it is admittedly one cunt hair less sinister than Star Wars Battlefront 2 at least, which admittedly is the worst fucking example of monetization run out of control in the history of fucking video games. The game is such a bent example of corrupt business practice and consumer betrayal that it has galvanised sections of the gaming community into making a stand against this kind of shite. And lastly, you do at least get to stab orcs, like Viggo Mortensen at the end of the first Lord of the Rings movie. Although you can do that in the previous game, and that regularly retails for under $10 now. So to wrap this up, Shadow of War is to date the worst fucking example of industry shit fuckery, scamming, bullshit and microtransactions that I have ever fucking seen firsthand outside of a fucking phone app. It represents everything that is broken and corrupt about the video games industry at the moment. This is a perfect example of a gaming company trying to work out how far they can take the piss out of the consumer by testing the limits of our patience to fucking destruction. Well, the race to the fucking bottom is complete. Massive grats, Warner Brothers. You are officially the biggest bunch of fuckshits in town. And luckily for us, you have literally tested the limits of everybody's patience to destruction. And the peasants have grabbed the pitchforks and are marching up to your manor house. I'm sorry, but it's fucking ridiculous to buy a AAA game that is designed to constantly try and sell you fucking microtransactions, both by prods and pokes and by fucking game design. It's a fucking tragedy really, because at its core, Shadow of War is a really great game. Okay, let's be honest, at its core, it's fucking Shadow of Mordor. But it's a solid sequel to a fantastic game, which progresses the game mechanics in a logical and interesting way. It's pretty much a textbook example of a safe, unimaginative, but well executed, solid sequel. Nothing is going to upset any of the fans, and any fan will probably be pleasantly surprised by the improvements and additions to the pre-existing mechanics. It's just such a goddamned Greek tragedy that they royally fucked it up by gutting the game and wrapping it around a fuck ton of microtransactions, and then balanced the game to try and bore players to fucking death during endgame to force them into spending cash to unlock the shit ending. It's like someone spent 14 years lovingly raising a daughter, and then because they suddenly decided they wanted a new car, marched them down to the local brothel and put them to fucking work. If you really are a fan of Lord of the Rings and love games about it, my advice is buy yourself a bottle of Lagavulin $60 single malt and replay the first game. It'll be fucking cheaper. The Game of the Year edition is only $15 on Steam when it's not on fucking sale. It's for sale for under $10 regularly. Second best choice would be fold up $10 and hide it in your wallet, and in a year's time buy this sack of shit game when it's on sale, but only after you have psychologically prepared yourself for the massive fuckshit grind required to fully unlock the game without shelling out cash on the pay to win microtransactions. I don't normally give generic scores to games in reviews, but today I'm going to make an exception, because I'm nice. I'm going to give Shadow of War 3 out of 10, because nearly all of its strengths are just revamped content from the previous game, and because none of this fucking matters anyway, because all the good in this game is wiped out by its horrible fucking paywalling of content, omnipresent in-game badgering to buy shit from the market, and the fucking hideous loot crates. Whilst being superficially beautiful and alluring on the outside, it is rotten at its core. This game is like a sock full of vomit. Nobody in their right mind should give a fuck how pretty the sock is, because someone vomited in it, and the puke is leaking out through the very fabric. It doesn't fucking matter that it's a $70 cashmere sock. It's still a sock full of fucking puke. Don't buy this game if you have an ounce of common sense, self-respect, and give any fucks about the future of gaming. Do buy this game if you want to encourage publishers to make the games you buy in the future be even less value for money than they are now. Wait 12 months. Buy it for $10 in a fucking sale. Do us all and yourself a big favour. Before I take my cunting leave and head off to pour salt on some other rancid fuckbag of a game, I would just like to personally give credit to every single person that has broken ranks and decided to call out this and the other games coming out this year for their bullshit. Absolute respect to everyone who has taken a fucking stand against these fucking dreadful business practices. Some of you I know personally, some of you I've watched on YouTube. Fucking credit and respect to all of you for speaking the truth, regardless of the consequences, and take some satisfaction from the fact that it looks like you will all end up on the right side of history. My very last thought would be with all the ground level devs that worked so hard to make this game so great. I'm sure they are fucking pissed to see their hard work hoard out like a 14-year-old prostitute getting arse banged in a Bangkok back alley. Well, I'm off to give the original game a proper playthrough finally. So good luck and happy hunting.